Hey everybody, Steve here. Thank you so much for listening in. Thanks for coming out for the crowd that's here. Thanks for listening in online. This is one of my favorite topics because if you get this right, you will have money for your whole life. You will not be broke. If you get this wrong, you can be either broke or currently broke. So we're talking about reducing debt or eliminating debt, and building wealth are the two topics that we're going to cover tonight. Standard disclaimer, you can pause that if you're at home, or if you're here, you got to read real quick. All right. Here is the debt scenario. If you are in debt, then these are national averages of, and folks, Corey put this together. He said the average student loan is $35,000 at 7%. The average credit card debt is $6,500. I would have thought it would have been higher, right? Seems like most people like to hit the plastic pretty hard. 22.5%, which is horrible. $120 a month on that to pay the minimum, right? And then auto loans, the average loan is $34,000 at 8%, which, gosh, that is also a terrible number for folks to have to get it behind you. So when you really take the average debt obligation all the way to the right-hand side, $540 a month that people are coming out of their paycheck is going right to servicing interest, right? And when you think about all these loans, you can kind of, if you're hardcore, you could say, well, you bought something you couldn't afford, right? Because you would have paid cash for it if you could afford it. But yes, pretty much everybody kind of, when you get started, goes into a little bit of debt. If you didn't, then good for you. But if you have this debt, let me show you how much it's really costing you in the long run. So the number to remember is that $540 a month. So over to this slide. So pretty small, but you can kind of see up and to the right here. But if you would have taken, so this is the opportunity cost slide. So if you think $500 a month, we'll just round down that 540 to 500 times 12, so that's $6,000 a year. For 8 years that it would take you to pay down your debt, if you had invested that money, then that's the orange part. So you take that, and that's how much you invested, and then you don't have to pay anymore. From there, if you look at the green and the blue totaled, the green is the amount of money that you've gained from being invested, and added to the actual amount that you put in there. So that $50,000 or so. When you look at it, it doesn't really make a difference for about 10 years, but that's when you really start to see it take off. And the green line is what you're looking at. That is your cumulative gain. And for anybody that's invested for a long time, you know that at the end of your investing journey, most of your wealth is gains, right? It's not the money that you put in. That's the seed money down here. So again, this is you 30 years from now if you invest the money that you would have put towards that debt. If you put it towards the debt, because you had to get a car, you had to get your student loans, and you had to hit your credit card, then you're sitting at zero. You don't have the money because you put it towards debt, and you don't have any of the gains. So that's really the cost. You look up there, $315,000, and you're just like, yeah, but that's the point. That's if you just take the money towards that debt and put it all the way up towards the top. Hey, come on in. So the next slide is how do you eliminate debt? Well, first of all is stop accumulating debt. That's the number one is if you're in debt, you have to kind of put yourself under a restraint of some sort to stop your actual spending. That's easier said than done, but it's certainly, you kind of have to look in the mirror. The analogy I use is, what would your future you think of yourself right now? So fast forward 20 years, and now you're 40 and broke, so that should help your 20-year-old self stop spending the money. Or fast forward 20 years, and your 60-year-old self's going to be pissed at your 40-year-old self for buying a boat when you really didn't have the money to buy a boat, right? So think about what your future is going to look like if you keep accumulating this debt. Make a list of all outstanding debts out there, including, and I think most people have done this, whether you use Excel, pencil, and paper, write it all down. Here's who I owe money to, and here's the interest rate, sort of thing. And then the min payment, if you have to at least make that, right, so it doesn't get worse. And then you can decide on two methods of paying down debt, snowball or avalanche. I'm more of an avalanche kind of guy, and we'll talk about that. But make it a priority. If it's just you, it's discipline between looking you and the person in the mirror, right? If you're married, then hey, you get to have the fun money talk about how much money do we have and what can we spend it on, and make sure you're on the same page. That's easier said than done. I know, I've been there, right? But if you can get on the same page about how you want to handle this financially, then you'll be better off. So the debt snowball, popularized by Dave Ramsey. If you've heard him, he's a get out of debt legend, if you will. Great advice for getting out of debt, terrible investing advice, that's my opinion. But the debt snowball method is you list it all, and then you go for the quick win, right? So if you have $1,000 on one credit card, you try to pay that down first, just so you get a win under your belt. You've eliminated something off your to-do list. If you're a to-do list maker, like my youngest daughter, she loves to-do lists, and at the top of the list, she's like, make to-do list, and then crosses that off so she gets a win. Okay, you can, get the win, right? So you tackle smallest to largest for the amount of debt that you have. That makes it kind of easy. However, if you want to do the debt avalanche, that's where you list it out, figure out what your highest debt is. If it's 8%, if it's 22.5%, like the credit card example that's out there, then certainly you want to tackle that first, and then go down to the 8% and then go from there. Financially, that is your best move, is to pay off the largest interest rate first. However, if that's also a very big number, then you're going to be challenged by that, because you don't get that kind of quick win, if you will. Or somewhere in between. Basically, you make this much, you spend this much, and then you take the delta in between and you put it towards paying off debt. So that's how you get out of debt. Easier said than done, but it's the first thing you have to do before you really start wealth building. Now, if you are pretty financially savvy, you could say, well, does that mean you don't have any debt, Steve? And I'm like, well, it's none of your business. But I will say, yes, I do. Their debt and leverage are the same thing, depending on whose hands it's in, if you will. So if you are financially savvy and you want to keep some debt, because that's the smart thing to do, then do so. So when would it be smart? My current house, I will literally never pay it off except for the absolute minimum. I'm sitting at like 2.875. And $500,000 on the mortgage. I'm telling you, a bank was dumb enough to cut that deal to me, and I will gladly accept it every time. Thank you, bank. We usually don't get that end of it, right? We're usually on the getting hosed end. But yeah, or if you're building a business and you borrow some money and you pay an interest rate for doing that, well, if your business outgrows the interest rate that you're paying, then that would be a smart business move. I kind of view leverage like fire. You do need to know what you're doing. And if we all have fire in our homes in a couple of locations, right? We all know what we're doing. It's protected and used wisely. If you are an idiot, then yes, you can burn your house down. Same thing with leverage. If you use debt/leverage improperly, then you can get burned. So be careful out there. Okay, so become debt free. Take back your income. That means that of all the money you make, you put 15% towards your future, 20% towards your future, and then spend the rest. That sort of thing. Create a plan to follow to build wealth, which means buy assets. That can be real estate, primary home, the most common one for most everybody. Stocks, bonds, those are assets. Boats, airplanes are not. Cars are not. They go on the asset side of the balance sheet, but they quickly depreciate. So be careful, or gold, Bitcoin also goes into the assets column, things that are going to appreciate over time. Be consistent during the compounding process. We saw from the slide before, it kind of gets exponential. It's easier when you're 56 like me and have been at this for decades to go, yeah, it does go exponential, than looking at a piece of paper and going, oh, well, I guess that does. It's like when you see it in action, it's a really good thing, which is why we're trying to talk today about it. And then measure clear financial goals. So it's okay to say you want to be rich. It's okay to say you want to be a millionaire. It's okay to say that you want to buy an airplane or boat or whatever it is you want to buy. Multi-generational wealth, it's okay, but those things, if those are your goals, really nobody needs to know about them but you. And then you want to go ahead and make a plan for that and make it clear. So you, and if you're in a relationship, you and your partner can meet those goals over time, or at least know where you stand. Okay, savings is the first thing you do. If you go down, we used to, when I was a kid, like a million years ago, right? Used to save 10% of your income and you were good. Unfortunately, we printed too much money and now we have inflation. So now it's more like 15 to 20%. And what's the difference? If you are, like we have a younger person in the room, if you graduate from college and you save 10% of your salary, you're just never going to make that home down payment, which is kind of that first real financial goal, is to be a homeowner versus a rentor. That's a choice, but if you're trying to build wealth, you do want to own the asset that you're living in. Yeah, you're not going to get there 10%. The goalpost moved on you. It's not good. So it's more like 20% now. So when you think of the 50, 30, 20, you're looking at 30% towards your housing, 50% towards just living your life. and it's important to live your life, right? It's not all about the money. And then 20% towards your future. Emergency funds are important. Back when I was a kid, it was 6 months salary. You do not need 6 months salary, that's my opinion. As long as you have credit lines, if you have credit cards, or as long, like I tell folks, you don't need a big, $100,000 in the bank unless you're doing nefarious stuff, right? If somebody's gonna show up and break your knuckles for something you did or some money you owe or stuff like that, then yeah, you better keep some cash on hand. But for most people, you don't have to pay today. The roof blows off the house, you get a new roof, and then you can pay it off in the next 30 days off your credit card, or 3 months, or whatever it takes you to pay it off. But the foundation is saving. If that's all you ever do, think back to Grandmama, my mom's mom worked as a waitress, and she literally had a tip jar, and she saved her tips for years, which is kind of cool, because when we switched coins, the silver ones to the non-silver ones, that was a lot of money, just because she had all the silver coins. You can get there. You don't ever have to invest a day in your life. You are going to have to work longer, but if you choose to invest, then that's where you can get your money kind of working for you. So you work hard for your money, and then you save some of it, and if you choose to invest, then it's putting those dollars to work for you just as hard as you work for it. So then there are different strategies out there. This is not an investing talk. This is about reducing debt and building wealth. But then you're going to have a couple different accounts. You'll have a taxable account, so you think bank account, then you'll have a brokerage account, and then you'll have IRAs, HSAs, Roths, all that sort of stuff, which we won't get into today. Many of those things will have tax advantages to them. So take advantage of the programs that the government gives you to pay less in taxes and get more of your money working towards your future. So that's the investing piece. The saving early, if you haven't seen the slide, it's worth everybody seeing, going back, and if you know this stuff, tell your kids, tell your broke ass brother, tell whoever you want that doesn't quite get this. But if you start at age 25, which is the left column here, this one, start at age 25 and you put in $5,000 a year, then for 40 years you put in $200,000 total. That's out of your pocket. 7% return. I'm telling you, you can beat that. Maybe you can't, but if you own a professional hands, it's a very easy bar to beat over time. You're gonna have significantly more money than if you just wait 10 years and do the same sort of thing. So getting that early start is, if you're in a position where you can do it, then you should do it. If you have kids out there and you're in a financial position to be able to help them out, to be able to kind of get this start, there's 2 ways to win with that. Is A, they can build money and start building wealth early on. And then secondly, just via the fact that they have some of these accounts, they're going to learn about it. And they're going to learn kind of discipline and the money talk. We're fortunate in the fact that we can talk money around the house. Not every household is that way. Some people don't ever talk about this stuff. But if you can have the conversation, start to build the discipline, kind of show the power of money over time, again, somebody can be a lot further along. Okay, here's your investing asset classes. Cash is the first one, CDs, treasuries, that sort of thing, super safe, backed by the US government. I would throw Bitcoin in there and or gold. Can you wave your hand? Get that light back on. Thank you. Things that store value, okay? You can make an argument for baseball cards, art. You can make an argument for a lot of things. I'm not here to debate that, but there are things that are good stores of value that are going to carry that value forward and keep pace with inflation. Equities, that's stock market stuff. It's a roller coaster, not a straight line for sure. So if you don't like that, then don't get on it. But that's your biggest wealth creation opportunity out there, is the public stock market. And that's been proven time and time again. Fixed income, get into bonds. Again, you're loaning money, they're paying you a percent, so you become the bank. It's good to be the bank and not the person borrowing from the bank, right? So you'll make some interest there. And then alternative investments, there's the Bitcoin thrown in there. Real estate, gold, silver, peer-to-peer loans, danger. Don't loan to family. If you loan to somebody, make sure it's a contract that'll stand up. Anyhow, so I would say don't do that, but you can. Obviously, it's a way to do it. Is to chop loans to random people. Not something I would do, but you can. So those are kind of your basic investment classes. If you want to learn more, there's other videos out there that will talk to that. Track your progress towards your goal. So again, these are things you need to be looking at over time to see how they're progressing, to see how, when you can buy that house, when you can retire. That's a big one for a lot of people. Or when you're going to sell your business, what are you going to do with all that money, and what sort of lifestyle does that chunk of money you get from your business enable for you? So you don't spend too much, you don't spend too little. right? Because you want to maximize life along the way. So those are conversations that you can have. Excel helps. We have fancy software that we use to track all that stuff, but you definitely want to be, I would say my word for it is intentional. Like building the business, you make intentional decisions to build the business. Be intentional with what you're trying to do with your money. Otherwise, it'll just happen over time, and maybe you hit your goals, maybe you don't. Okay, last thing I'll close with is we do active investing here, and we're proponents of that. But if you just do passive investing, if you never talk to an advisor, investment manager in your whole life, and you buy the S&P 500, which is the SPY, ticker SPY, these are the type of returns you're looking at. The red line is going to be the appreciation from the money you put in, how much it went up in the stock price. Then the blue line is if you take the dividends, again, that are getting kicked off of that and turn around and reinvest that into the market. So if you haven't touched this money, the red line is how much it's gone up, and then the blue line is all the additional that's out there. And the biggest important thing to see here is that those dividends matter. So there's a time to spend your dividends. Usually you're not working anymore and you're living off that money. That's the milk. If you use the milk and cow analogy, the red line's kind of the cow, the blue's the milk. So live off the milk, don't touch the cow, sort of thing. But again, tracking that 10 to 12% if you reinvest dividends, pretty good deal. And that's without looking, without paying attention, just plugging the money in there, kind of 401k style. And if there's a downturn in the market, you just look away or grit your teeth or whatever your coping mechanism is for that time, but you don't do anything. You just take the ride. Perfectly valid strategy. Okay, last thing, rule of 72, if you're trying to figure out how long it takes to double your money, this is a good rule to understand how obviously we're proponents of active investing. I've done that my whole life, and that's what our firm does for folks, is if you're going to, instead of just buying the S&P 500, instead of buying 500 stocks, maybe you want to buy like 15 to 20 and really cherry pick the best stocks out of there. And again, active gets a bad name sometimes. You're not trying to pick the best stocks, if you will, trying to pick the best companies, and the stock will take care of itself. So picking futuristic names, Apple has been good for us. Berkshire Hathaway has been a long-term winner. Amazon, Google, do your own due diligence before you invest in those. But the big names out there, NVIDIA, have just crushed it, and they're going to continue to crush it, in my opinion. So putting your name there, you can kind of focus your portfolio, and then get into a place where you can get those more than market-beating type returns. So if you get 2% down at the bottom, we'll use 4% because CDs are paying kind of 4%. It takes about 18 years for your money to double. Long time, too long for me. I'm patient, but I'm not that patient. That I would wait for an entire, that's like the timeline of a child birth to out of high school for a child. It's a long time. If you've been down that road, long time. If you get 6%, then you chop that down to 12 years. If you can get 8%, it goes down to 9 years. If you get 12%, it's down to 6 years. So really, just even the index investing, you should be doubling your money in every 6 years. I like to do this thing with kids where I have the $100 stacks of ones, and I say, okay, so at 12% after 6 years, you've doubled your money. So how much money do you have? I take the 100 and I go 200, and then I'm like, okay, you do that again. How much money do you have in the next 6 years? And everybody says 300. And I'm like, y'all flunk math, right? Because 200 doubled is now 400. So yes, that's that exponential portion of the chart. So understand the math. Don't leave school without it. That sort of thing. Nope, we're good to go. Oh, no, there we go. All right, lights are fading in and out. Hopefully not mine, the actual lights. So that's the rule of 72. It's a good way to kind of know about when you're being intentional. It's like, what sort of return am I seeking? And if you're like, well, I want risk-free, but I want to make 20% a year, it's like, well, yeah, me too. So we're not doing that. But we can sit down on a chart and show you the different investments and the traditional returns. And if you want to make 30, 40% a year, you either have to open a business, or you can invest in like venture capital, some super high risk stuff. But that's where you get the return. All right, and the last slide, I do promise. You're like, well, Steve, thanks for telling me this. I'm sitting here at 45. It's like, why don't you rewind the clock and tell me it's 20 years ago? I'm like, I got you. I hear you. I do. Again, you learn what you learn when you learn it. That sounds dumb, but it's true. But if you look at this, Warren Buffett made most of his wealth, 99% of his wealth after the age of 55. So it's really not too late. So if you're carrying some debt around and you're carrying a four handle on your age, you are too old for that. You go ahead and just kill it off. Get serious with the person in the mirror and go, yeah, I got to kill that off. Live within your means, kill it off, because you can get these returns just later on. So it's better late than never sort of mentality. and then learn from you, share your experiences if you can with others, you know, kids, that sort of things, and to just say, hey, the importance of, you know, starting early is truly a life-changing thing. My parents started me at age 16. They said you need to fund an IRA, and I'm like, what's an IRA? And they're like, well, kind of doesn't matter, but if you get a job and you put $2,000 in, which was the max at the time when dinosaurs roamed the earth, then they said, we'll give you you keep the 2,000 if you're in it, we'll match that into your IRA. And I said, that sounds like free money. They're like, yes, it's free money. So I did that with my kids. I've matched their money that they put into IRAs and got a nice start for them. So there are tricks out there to help get your kids started earlier if you can. So, all right, that is truly my last slide. So I know everybody is waiting to ask that question. So any questions out there? No questions? So any questions for just, you know, walking in? There we go. All right. No questions on this end. So if you have questions, again, just reply into the comments of this video. Hey, come on in. Or just reach out to wherever we post it. So, all right, you guys have a good one. Thanks for listening in. Bye.